In this video, we are going to talk about how you can go from hypersexual to super prude as a fearful avoidant. I am Pauline and I am so happy you are here because I was reading through the comments on one of my last videos on sex and the fearful avoidant attachment style, and this comment kind of caught my eye, where one of you said that you used to be hypersexual and now you were super prude in your marriage, and that wasn't part of the deal, so you wanted to work on that. And it is such a common thing in fearful avoidance that I thought I would just make a whole video on it. Um, I do have to preface this by saying that sex is a completely different world almost. And it is hard to generalize and it is hard to pinpoint what exactly is the fearful avoidant attachment style and not, because sex has so many of its own associations that come from cultural backgrounds, religious backgrounds, or your own experiences with sex. So if you don't recognize any of this, that is totally possible and totally fine. But I am going to try to explain a pattern that is common in the fearful avoidant attachment style. And that is that you are at one point in your life, in one period of your life, hypersexual, and in another period later in life, you become super prude. Like, it's a pretty extreme flip flop. And you might be wondering, well, how did that happen? What happened? Or you might be a partner of a fearful avoidant watching this video, knowing that flip, that switch, and thinking, yeah, I want to know what happened. So I'm going to explain it. One of the main differences between those periods is the partners and the emotional unavailability of the partner. When we're younger, usually the majority of people, and I guess definitely the majority of fearful avoidance, don't really have a committed relationship um, until you start healing. And so you can have this pattern where you just crave attention. I also have to say I'm speaking from the female perspective because this can definitely work with the same in men and in women, but I have more experience with the female perspective, both myself, but also from the girls I helped. So I am going to speak from that, from that female perspective. But craving that attention could lead to you texting a lot of guys at the same time, a lot of people at the same time. That's what I did for years to kind of satisfy the need for attention. Uh, but I noticed that when the partner is emotionally unavailable, that there is a higher chance of hypersexuality, because then sex becomes a way to reel that partner in, to get that attention that you crave. Mm, Whereas when you are in a committed, loyal, healthy relationship, that emotional availability is there. And then sex can actually flip and become kind of a risk. So, sex is a powerful weapon, right? It is a very powerful weapon to get the attention that we maybe lacked as a child. And I know this sounds maybe weird and very Freudian, and I am very, very aware of that. But a lot of fearful avoidance, let me explain it. A lot of fearful avoidance in their childhood lacked any form of connection. And when connection isn't available, you turn to attention, because that's the next best thing to connection. And so, what do you do when you grow up, become a woman, and kind of realize or notice that men or women start to take an interest in you, start to give you attention, because now you have this added thing, which is your sexuality, which is interesting to other people. And so sex can become that weapon, that way of getting the attention that you craved as a child, actually the connection that you craved as a child, but now you're just kind of settling for attention. And this is something you didn't have as a child. You didn't have your sexuality uh, to use as a weapon. Um, and so it really is this added thing when you're an adult where you can kind of find yourself in the pattern where you're trying to heal the wounds of a childhood that lacked connection and attention, and you're trying to fill that with this newfound thing, which is your sexuality, which is interesting to other people. And that can create this hypersexuality where you use your sexuality to fulfill that need or to heal that wound. But then when you are in a healthy, committed relationship, that emotional availability is there. So maybe you've started healing. Maybe you've started working on healing the fearful avoidant attachment style, and you are in a healthy and committed relationship, and you are actually capable of connecting in that relationship, which is amazing. It's amazing. Then sex can just kind of flip around to becoming a risk for rejection and abandonment, and your partner coming too close, finding something they don't like. Because like I said, sex is almost a whole different world, and there's a lot of partners, people that are securely attached, that are very well capable of being in a healthy, committed relationship, that are very well capable of connecting, but they still have their own beliefs and fears around sex, that they're not good enough, or that they're sinful if it's religious background, for wanting sex. So there's a lot of specific emotional charge around sex, also in securely attached individuals. So it could be that you're picking up on that. It could just be that you are starting to kind of take on, how do you say that, this jacket that society kind of wants women sometimes to take on, that you cannot be too much, you can't be too sexual, that's not being a good wife or whatever. I completely don't agree, but those can be images we get in society. And so you kind of start playing the good wife and not wanting too much sex, not being too sexual. So I'm listing different different risks here. The first risk is that your partner has certain beliefs about what a woman should or should not be in the bedroom, beliefs about their own capabilities when it comes to sex, which when they're insecure about their own sexuality or capabilities, that can feel like rejection for you. And the fear of rejection is a very real one in the fearful avoidant attachment style. So then it's very logical that you're staying away from sex. And then, yeah, it's also possible that you're trying on that jacket of of having to be a good wife, which means all kinds of things, which they don't mean that. So it's a different role you're kind of playing almost, and that can change also when you're a mother. So I mean, sexuality is just rife with so many limiting beliefs, right? It's such a healing thing to let go of all of that and to release all of those beliefs and all of that emotional charge around it. So even just sexuality is, you can very well heal as a fearful avoidant, but it is logical that you become a super prude. So those are two risks. Then also, sex is one of the most beautiful ways to connect deeply. It's not the only way, but it is one of the most beautiful ways. It is also one of the most intense ways, because there's a lot of other feelings that come with that too. Fearful avoidants tend to be very scared of connection. So that can be a risk in and of itself. You just don't want sex because that means you would have to deal with connection and all the negative associations that are surrounding that. And maybe you've come to a level or a point in your relationship where in the day-to-day you are able to connect, but when it comes to those deeper levels, there's still pain there. So it could be that, and then your fear brain's like, nope, not gonna do sex, just not gonna do it, then I don't have to deal with it. And another point, another thing is, it could be that you're bored. Because when it comes to a long-lasting relationship or marriage, the way to keep sex interesting and passionate is through connection and deepening connection and following that sexual connection wherever it leads you without judgment. And that, my dear friend, is so incredibly scary for a fearful avoidant. That's like the opposite of what your fear brain wants you to do, which is, for an unhealed fearful avoidant, just run away from relationships in general. And now you're asking me to not only surrender to the connection, but follow the connection? What? Are you crazy? So when you have sex and you're trying to kind of stay away from that deeper connection and following the connection, sex gets boring because it gets repetitive. It's just very uninspired. And you don't spice it up by, buying lingerie and stuff. That could work. I mean, why not? But if you want to build a beautiful sex life for the rest of your life, connection is where it's at. And that is a lot to ask for a fearful avoidant. So that could also be a reason why now you've turned super prude, because you're just bored in the bedroom and you think, oh, well, the rest of the relationship is good, but this part, not so good. I wish it was more passionate, because you want it, but wanting it is something else than actually allowing it and having it. Sometimes it's easier and safer to want something and not have it than to actually have something. And that is definitely the case when it comes to connection for a lot of fearful avoidants. So these are pretty much 4 reasons why all of a sudden you become super prude. So it all has to do with what is safe and what isn't, right? What triggers you and what doesn't trigger you. Everything that happens in your relationship, everything you feel, everything you resist, everything you lean towards, has to do with safety. And the more you heal, the more freedom you have, and the less you are led by or bound by what you're afraid of and what feels safe and unsafe. But it could be that sex is one of those last hurdles to take to completely really create a deeply fulfilling, loving, passionate relationship for the rest of your life. It is so possible. And I truly believe that sex is a lifelong journey. It is not something that we just do, at the beginning of our relationship. It's fireworks and then that's it for the rest of your life. It's an adventure. It's a journey for the rest of your life. So you have time. You have time. I hope this was valuable. Let me know in the comments below whether this was clear enough, if you have any other questions, because I'm always happy and willing to make another video if you have more questions. But yeah, let me know in the comments below whether this was valuable for you. And as always, I am so happy you are here, and I will see you in the next one.